All right. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Shannon. This is Made by Boo. I did not get any of my labels out today. And I'm moving my microphone a little bit here. So clearly I am very organized as we start today. Let me give what little information I always try to remember. Again, my name is Shannon. I am filming today from a little bit outside of Boise, Idaho, and I am clearly very organized this morning. We have had a little bit of snow and we're at a rainy day today. So the upside of all of that is that there has been a lot of time to work on projects. I have a finished object, it's kind of a half-finished object, and I believe I counted up 7 works in progress. So we definitely have a lot to get into. Let me reach for those forgotten labels, and I may have to sort them out as we go. I keep them all just in this little bag for when I need to remember what they are. And then once I'm done with the project, I do throw them away. I used to keep them, but then it was just this huge bag of labels for no reason, so I stopped. All right, so my one finished object is a pair of socks. It was made using Cascade Heritage yarn. I know it's not going to focus, but I still show. There's 4 different colors. I do not remember the 4 different colors off the top of my head. But for those of you who are new, these are almost the last in, I know they don't look like a matching pair of socks. So we have been going to see Broadway shows in Boise. They have the touring groups coming through. We are actually going to see the 4th of 5 shows next Saturday. And then these are for the 5th show. Some of you may have already guessed what show it is. The last show we will be going to see will be Wicked. So this is my daughter's pair for it. We decided to make them mismatched socks, very on theme. And we went for like the nice soft pink with the gray, so it kind of looks like the crown and a little kind of like bubble level of pink. And then of course, green and black. I have not started mine for this pair. I'm definitely getting a little burnt out on these socks. My plan is to start my pair this week and get the cuffs going on those. And then once the cuffs are going, they will be really good on the go knitting. I already folded them back up. These are Cascade Heritage yarn. So I did 20 rounds of 1x1 rib. Then for my daughter, I normally do 60 rounds for the leg. I went ahead and did 70 because I just felt a little short this time. I did a contrast heel for her. And then she told me that sometimes the toe feels a little weird for her. So I tried, a lot of times I do a rounded toe just because it's simple, easy, and I don't really care. Like, any of the toes seem to be comfortable for me. But I did do a tapered toe for her this time. And I kind of have like a, probably controversial for some, but I don't know that it should be. I usually don't Kitchener my socks closed. I usually just do like a 3-needle bind off because, again, it doesn't feel any different to me. But I did actually Kitchener the toes closed on these ones because I was hoping that would make it so the seam would not be quite the same as it is on a rounded toe, and maybe it would spread the seam a little bit farther so that she wasn't quite as uncomfortable with it. I don't know. We'll see if she likes these better. This is the last pair. This is the second to the last pair of the Broadway socks I'm doing. I will start mine, and then after that, I've already told my daughter if we do a bunch of shows like this again, I am not sure I can make the commitment to 10 socks for us to wear, but we will see. I'm enjoying wearing them to every show, but I do miss just picking out whatever color I feel like and starting a pair of socks. These are all like planned months in advance, and it's all of my sock knitting time, so that does get a little sad. My next finished object, and you'll see in a second why it is kind of a half-finished object, I've actually been spinning again. So kind of a 2-for-1. Up until this point, I've had 2 spinning wheels and a couple of drop spindles, which I almost never use. I just have them because that's what I learned to spin on. And then I bought myself a spinning wheel. I loved it. My mom found one at a garage sale, gave it to me. I fixed it up, and I don't use that one as often just because, I mean, how many spinning wheels can a person actually use at one time? Well, for Christmas, my in-laws they wanted to get us something big, and they sent one of those where it's like, hey, buy yourself something that we don't know exactly what it is. And usually when things like that happen, what we end up buying ourselves is just like put it in the bank, and then it piddles away on bills or yarn here and there. I mean, you could argue exactly what that money is versus other money, but it's not usually going to a big purchase. Well, I did end up using it as an excuse this time to buy a electric spinning wheel. And this has been kind of like a couple month long process now, because I ordered one, and then I think it was actually ending up coming from like a drop shipper, which I did not realize at the time, obviously. But I spent a month waiting for it, only for it to go back, and then they were like, oh, well, it went back to China. And I think it kind of got caught in a little bit of time. I live in Boise, Idaho. That is the United States. So there was a point there where they were just not accepting any packages coming from China, which was really annoying. And I have a feeling that this one got caught in that. And it got shipped back. I put in for a refund, and they were like, well, we can try to send it again. And I just did not want to spend another month and then still not get it, especially since it was not exactly what it ended up being. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to end up being. So, I mean, I'm not sure if it was a drop shipper or just a company that was not exactly what I thought it was, because either way, I clearly did not know what I was getting it from. So I thought about not getting a electric wheel at all, and it's like, it's fine, but I really kind of wanted it. And so what I wanted was the electric eel wheel. Is it Nano? Like the little mini version, because that was cheaper and it seemed like it'd be a good idea. But everywhere I found, they were sold out, and waiting lists were like, well, you might get it in June. And then I found one that had the electric eel wheel, the regular size. And it came with 6 bobbins. It's obviously, the plug is not in. It doesn't have a battery for you to charge and take it everywhere, but I'm not sure I would anyways. But I have my cute little wheel. This is currently work in progress, so ignore this one. And this is the one that is kind of a finished, because it is a finished bobbin. I honestly do not remember what color this is, what kind of fleece this is. For a while, I was getting a subscription where I would get some fiber every month from Paradise Fibers. And then I ended up stopping doing that, and I have a huge back stock of all the stuff they were sending, because they were sending it and I just wasn't spending as much. And so this is like a nice bluish gray. It's got some blue sparkle. I have spun up the entire 4 ounces, and then I am going to ply it on itself, which is why it is not, I don't count it as a finished object, because it's not quite done. Usually when I do plying, if I'm plying it to itself, I take it off the bobbin and I put it into a cake, and then I kind of ply it from the outside and the inside together. I do kind of want to learn how to chain ply, but when I've tried it before, it went so bad. Which of course doesn't mean I shouldn't try again, but it just means, long story short, I do not know how to chain ply. But then the first of my 7 works in progress is this one. This is another one that came from Paradise Fibers. It was a dyeing set where you got some pink, yellow, and blue, and black. And the idea was you put a little bit of the dye in some places and you tie around it, and then you put the black all over it. And I did that with a skein of yarn and with a bunch of fiber. I still have the skein of yarn. I have not done anything with it yet, and I'm finally getting around to spinning up the fiber. I am going to do a fractal spin with it, so I have half of it in one braid, and then I split the other half of it into 2 braids. I'm actually doing the 2/4 first, and then I'll do the half and ply them back onto each other. But that is going to be a couple of weeks until each of those bobbins is done because I'm enjoying spinning again, but it's not the only project that I'm working on. As I did say, I have 6 other works in progress, so let's get into the rest of those and we'll see why this is not all I'm doing. All right, so we will get into the 4 of the remaining 6 projects you should have seen previously. These 3 should all be decently quick. And they're all ones that have gotten a little bit of work over the last 2 weeks. If there's ever a project that has gotten 0 work over a period of time, like since we last saw, I'm not going to bother talking about it. One of these I'll start with. I'm not sure if I'll talk about this every week, every month, every 2 months, whatever. This I did get a lot of work on over the last couple of weeks. It is a scrappy blanket, so I have all my labels, but I don't think I actually need them very much today. So this is a scrappy blanket. It is the Coziest Memory by Kay Jones. I will double check that. But it's the Coziest Memory. I believe it is a free pattern. And it's one I started about a year ago, and then I stopped working on. And then I started again, and it was like, ooh, this is all I want to do. I want to work on it all the time. And then I had to put it aside because, of course, I have a lot of other projects. And then I got the brilliant idea. I have so many other projects that I'm working on, just chipping away, where it's like, next couple you're going to see are the ones that I'm working on just a little bit every month to complete in a year. And it was like, well, if I just get one little square done every week, by the end of a year, I'll have 52 new squares on this. And that's not a huge commitment. Each square takes me somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes, depending on how fast I'm working that day. You can see I did have a little bit of a tension change, but I figured it out and seems to be going better. I don't think it's different enough that I feel the need to pull these out. But for some reason, what seemed logical to me was to catch up and be like, okay, well, how many weeks has there already been in this year? Well, I need to do this many to get up to that point. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional squares, and then I'm going to probably work on getting another one going today while editing. I'm really enjoying working on it, and that's part of why I want to try to keep up with doing at least 1 a week, which would come out to about 4 every month. So I might just kind of show it like at the end of a month of everything I got on it. I thought about leaving this away and bringing it out next week at like the beginning of March, and I may just wait and bring it out at the beginning of April again. We'll see. I don't know if you'll see this all the time or not. But with the idea that I would then get 52 squares in a year, while I was looking at that, I realized I do somewhat have one problem with that, because my bag of yarns that are going into it, I weigh, with all of my leftover yarns, I weigh how much is left, and then I categorize it by how much is left. So, like, if it's 40, 50 and up, it goes to one place. If it is between 50 and 20 grams, it goes somewhere else. If it's between 20 and 5 grams, it goes somewhere else. And here's all the stuff that is between, I think it's all at least 5 grams, but not 10 grams. I don't know. I have it all written down, but suddenly I'm blanking on the numbers. But here's the ones going in here. Anything that's less than this goes into a bag to go into magic knot balls. I counted how many I have in here, and I only have about 24 more colors. So when I run out of that, I don't know if that means this blanket will go into hibernation for a little while I work on other stuff. One of my daughters suggested, well, that means every time you finish something, you could just put a square right into it. It's like, well, yes, but also maybe no, because not everything is going to be the right amount. I do have another set of scraps that I do want to use to make a granny stripe blanket. And the thought is that after a stripe would be done, there'd be enough left to go into here. So maybe I finish these and then I start that one to create more scraps for this one. I don't know. Scraps are kind of something I want to work on, but they're not my immediate priority. I have other bits of my stash that is a little bit higher, but I'm trying to be aware of my scraps because theoretically, the more I work on knitting stuff, the more scraps I create. And eventually that's going to be a mountain of a problem. The next project I'm going to show is not currently creating any scraps, though. This is my Anthology Throw by Helen Stewart. It is being done in my 2024 Advent from Ruby and Roses. I'm working on doing 2 colors every month, and I have finished the second color. So the last time we met, I was halfway through the first color. I've now completed the second color. I have the color after it tied on, and I have now reached the point in everything where I am at like 500 and something stitches per round. So it's been really fun working on it so far. I'm not sure how much I'm going to like it now that the rounds have gotten a lot bigger, but I'm slightly concerned because I'm just going with each color until it runs out. But every single mini skein I've had has gone farther for me than it did for the person in the pattern, where in her pattern it says like about where she changed, which if I was working with scraps, cool, I could just change at the beginning of the round for each of those. But instead it's like, well, I'm just going to use every bit of every mini skein. But this is the first time I've made this pattern, so I don't know what happens if I get to the end of everything and I'm out of mini skeins. Like, is there a way that it can keep going? I've read the pattern, but until I get to that point, I don't know. And honestly, I'm only 2 months into a project that I'm planning on taking me all year, so we'll see. I'm really enjoying how it's turning out so far. The next colors coming up are gorgeous. And honestly, I'm just loving this yarn. It hasn't been like blocked or anything, but it's just so squishy and soft, and it already has me like, okay, well, this Ruby and Rose is maybe an advent calendar I have to order for next year again. Because I'm really enjoying the colors. I'm really enjoying the yarn. It is just absolutely wonderful. The next one I have is one of my other ones that I'm working on chipping away at. This is another advent project. So when I started this is the Yorkshire Crochet Along blanket. So it's 12 different patterns. Each are supposed to be 2 colors for one pattern. My original thought was I will do one square pattern, so 2 colors every month, and then at the end of the year, I have a blanket, similar to the Anthology. Do 2 colors every month, and then at the end of the year, I have a blanket. But then I started thinking, well, if I do that at the end of the year with this, I will have a pile of squares that will then still need to be done to be finished. But if I do the squares 3 a month, theoretically, I finish those squares in 8 months instead of 12, and then I have 4 months to do all the borders and the edging and finish it before the end of the year. And I kept thinking about it, and it was one of those where it was like, yeah, but I don't know, this is supposed to be kind of a relaxing, calm thing, but if I change my mind later, like if I change my mind in June, then I'm doing 6 months worth of stuff in 2 months versus chipping away at it slowly like I wanted to. I'm not 100% sure that I am going to be doing this every month, doing 3 squares the rest of it, or if some months I'm going to do 4 and some months I'm going to do 2. But if I average out 3 squares or 3 patterns of 6 squares over 2 months, it should mean that I am done in enough time to do the edging and everything before the end of the year. So, recap, this is the Yorkshire Crochet Along blanket from Me Mom Makes, being made with FanGirl Fibers Haunted Holiday Advent Calendar from 2024. So all of the advent calendars I'm currently working with are from this last year, and I'm trying to make it a goal that I will finish them before advent season comes around next year, so I'm not just continuously building up more and more advent calendars. I do still have them tied on. This is my 3rd month of squares, so I'm thinking I might cut the balls off soon and start blocking them as I go, but I didn't want to cut the yarn off at first until I knew if they were all coming out about the same size so that I could fix it if I needed to. But this is the 3rd squares, the 3rd patterns, so squares 5 and 6. But so far, all 6 of my squares are approximately the same size, so it does kind of make sense that at some point here I start cutting off that extra yarn and blocking the squares so that when it's time for me to put it all together, they are all blocked, they are all ready to go. I do have my next 2 patterns for the squares already wound up and ready to go. And yeah, I'm really enjoying working on it. I'm liking the colors. I'm liking all the patterns. This last one, it felt like it took me forever. So some of the other squares would take me like 30 to 45 minutes. These last ones took me like an hour and a half. I don't know why. It wasn't necessarily because they were more complicated. I think it was because they had like crossed double crochets, which was just a little bit of focus, but also bobble stitches. So it's like several stitches in one stitch to make the bobble. So it kind of seemed to be like technically more stitches per round, even if it wasn't entirely. I don't know. They weren't like, they have a video tutorial, and I watched the video tutorial the first time, but I did not need it for the second square. And the second square still took me a long time. So there's just something about it that seemed to take me longer to make. Let me get my next 3 projects to work on, and then we will keep talking about all of that. Okay. So the only project I currently have that would require a label is the last project I have that you would have already seen. The other 2 are new cast-ons. So this is using yarn from Muse 2320 fiber. It was part of her Troop 2320 set that came out in 2023. And the color is Lake Itasca. And I am using this to make a Musselburgh hat for my husband. This was actually like my travel knitting over the last week, where I finished the Wicked socks. And I knew I kind of needed to cast on the Wicked socks, but I was not going to work with that dark black. Like Cascade Heritage black yarn, high quality black, miserable to look at the stitches. And I didn't want to use that as my travel knitting because sometimes it is kind of dark where I am, in my travel knitting and things like that. So I really did not want to be dealing with that nonsense. And I gave myself a week before I cast the next one on, and just kind of went on this Musselburgh hat. So I've got several stitch markers in. This one is my beginning of round. This one is the end of the crown, and then this is where we were last time. So when I measured it yesterday, I have about 40 grams left of the yarn in here. I feel like I need about 10 grams left for the other crown. And when I measured it here, it was about 6 or 7 inches. I don't have all of the like math right in front of me. I would like it to be at least 10 inches before I flip it over, but I do need to measure the other hat I have just to make sure it's the right size. But yeah, I'd like a minimum of 10 inches before I hit the crown, but the goal is to use as much of this yarn as possible. And yeah, there's not a whole bunch to say about it. I'm probably going to have it as my travel knitting for at least 1 more week and get a whole bunch of work done on it. Because it is starting to warm up here in Idaho, even though we had snow over the last week. It is supposed to be warming up again. We are starting to hit March. So it is going to stay cold for a little bit, but if I don't finish it soon, my husband will not have the opportunity to wear this at all this year. I don't know if he actually will anyways, because it could be one of those where it's cold enough for a hat, but not cold enough for a double layer hat. But either way, if he wants to try to wear it this year, I'd like to give him the opportunity. So I am trying to get it going for that. But yeah, simple Musselburgh hat. I don't make a lot of things for my husband, just because, I don't know, I tend to do a lot of selfish knitting. Maybe I should be judged for it, but I don't really care. But I have made him 3 hats, and 2 hats. This will be hat number 3. And he does tend to wear the first hat I ever made him, like every time he goes anywhere, that tends to be the hat he wears. So I'm hoping that he enjoys this one as well. My next cast on, we'll grab this one. It's still in the box because my organizational system for this project is not great right now. So this is the advent calendar that I had from last year from Maple and Barley. It was a Zodiac themed one. And the reason I have just kind of kept it in the box is because that's how I'm keeping all the bags in order. So this is a pair of socks. The main skein that it came with was purple. Still like this, so I'm sure you can guess that I chose not to use that for my socks. And instead I am using leftover yarn from So Happy Jane. I have no idea what the color was. It was from one of the monthly subscriptions. Because I just kind of liked the dark gray. So I am currently, I'm working on them concurrently, like they each have their own needle. And then I've just been putting the stitch markers in at the end of each stripe because like when it went from the orange to this one, some of that pink was a little bit harder to tell where we were. So I was just putting it in so I have an easy way to count each stripe. And these are just going to be, it's a 12-day advent. So I'm doing I was about to say self-striping, but they're not self-striping. A striped pair of socks where each stripe of the 12 advent days is going to be 10 rounds. So I'm going to do, for my foot, 7 colors, put the heel in, 5 colors, and then the toe. But what part of why I'm keeping them in the box still is because I weighed out, sorry for the crinkle, I weighed out how much I had left after the first color, and I had a feeling that I was going to have a lot left over, even when I planned on making these socks. And I had 16 grams left. So it's one of those where that's still enough to do something pretty substantial with. So I don't want this project to get out of order because I don't know what I'm going to do with the leftovers yet. I thought about doing some sort of a cowl and using the main skein that it came with, but a lot of the advent cowls I have found are designed for 24 and a main color. And I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to do something. It's just, I haven't found the right pattern yet. And so until I know exactly what I want to do with the rest of this yarn, I'm trying to keep it in order, trying to keep it with its zodiac signs so that I have that option. If I want to rearrange it later, I can. But I don't want to be scurrying around trying to find the socks so that I can put it all in order and then trying to remember, wait, which zodiac sign was which? So yeah, working out of a box is not ideal, but for the first project with that, that's what I'm doing. Once I decide what the next project is from that yarn, then maybe I'll switch it to a different container. Like I said, I'm leaning towards some sort of a cowl, but I don't know what pattern yet. And it's not necessarily going to be I finish those socks and I instantly go into that next pattern. Just more of a, I'm trying to find one, and when I find it and I'm ready for it, then I will do it. My last work in progress is in my trusty Waddles bag that my daughter made for me. Well, my daughter embroidered this on it. She didn't make the whole bag. So this is my other advent calendar project that I have started. So that means that of the advent calendars that I purchased last year, I have completed 1 project, started 4, and have 1 more advent calendar sitting there not used at all. So I'm very proud of myself on working through this, which in my clarifying, like, I want to use them all before I start opening advent calendars again at the end of the year. I am not saying I need to use every single bit of the yarn because only one of the projects, well, my completed blanket, it used most of the yarn, and most of what was left of each individual one went into my, it's going to go into a magic knot ball. Oh my goodness, I could not catch my words there. So like the scraps from that were very, very minimal. I'm not worried about that. But the scraps from my Yorkshire Advent, those are going to be going into other things. Those are just going into the scrap piles. I'm not worried about it. My Maple and Barley, there's clearly a lot of scraps from those socks that are going to be left over. I am not counting that as I still have to use that before I open Advents next year. But I would like to come up with another pattern for it and maybe use them. We'll see. But it's one of those where it's like, I have used that advent calendar. I don't have to use it all. This is going to be a same one where I'm going to use it, but I'm not going to be using all of every color. So, this is my So Happy Jane 2024 advent calendar. I've got a whole bunch of little labels in here from each of her individual ones. So all of the individual colors, I have not put this many colors into it yet, but those are the ones that I have wound up. And then I am not currently subscribed to her Hand-Dyed Happy Yarn Club, but I am using yarn from previous Hand-Dyed Happy Yarn Club to do the rest of this. So, the pattern that I have selected for this one is the Twisted T-shirt by Brianna Lapino of Little Wolf Knits. I have made a striped version of this previously, and I am actually going to be doing 3 different accent colors for the collar, the arms, and then the ribbing at the bottom. So this is what I used for the ribbing at the top. This is the color Sugar and Spice. I'm going to have a lot left over of it because that's all I am using of that color at this time. So here is my bag where I have all of the colors that are going to go into this. So there's 18 different yarns. I calculated it out that each is going to do a 9-row repeat or a 9-row stripe. This is the leftovers of the first one. I haven't weighed it because it doesn't matter. It's not going to be a consistent amount. And then I have only completed 1 colored stripe. Ooh. Yeah, that should be the next one. Sorry. I am still attached to everything. So, here's what I have so far. I have my ribbing at the top. I have the short row shaping at the back with the first color. And then I have started my second stripe, and I am working on the raglan increases. And then when I split for the arms, I should be like halfway between a green, and I have another So Happy Jane that's a greenish, and then I have a like lavender for the bottom. But it's going to be a nice kind of jewel-toned rainbow. I'm very excited about it, but it's certainly not a full shirt right now. I'm hoping to get a couple of stripes going on it in the next few weeks, and really, like, by the next time we meet, it'd be great if I had split for the sleeves at least, but we'll kind of see where we go, because as you can tell with all of these projects, I'm definitely a little scattered with what I want to work on, and I have a lot that I want to work on at a time right now. All right, so that is all of my finished objects and all of my works in progress. As you can see, I've got a little bit of scatterbrainedness going on with a lot of my projects, and I'm trying to be very, very organized with them. It's not entirely working, but I did do a little bit where I set it up just like hey, here's what I want to complete, or what I want to be working on in this month. Here's what I want to be working on in this month. And I tried to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, but mostly focusing on like, get 2 colors of this one, get 2 colors of this one. Next month I'm going to add in just a place to kind of check off if I got all the squares for my coziest memory. And I may try to do something with my Twisted T-shirt to kind of track how fast I'm getting through my stripes. It doesn't entirely matter, but it's that nice little sense of accomplishment. I had originally planned on working on the Twisted T-shirts during March and April, and so I almost didn't even cast it on yet, but I really just kind of wanted to get that ribbing done. But I do need to be focusing too on getting my last pair of Wicked socks done so that they will be available to wear at the beginning of April. And as much as I like that I have several projects that I'm working on that I can just kind of chip away at, I definitely do get frustrated when I don't have a lot that I'm finishing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I tend to start new projects when I'm not finishing a lot. Because, like, I haven't been finishing anything. Let me start another pair of socks. Because socks don't take very long. But everything takes longer if you don't really have time to work on it. So I'm going to hopefully spend the next couple of weeks trying to rein stuff in just a little bit and get myself under control. It is going to be a busy couple of weeks at work because I have a lot of paperwork and things to do that are a little bit chaotic and honestly don't entirely matter at all for knitting, crochet, spinning, any of that stuff. It's completely not fiber arts related. Unfortunately, I am not lucky enough to have that be somebody paying me just to make myself pretty things, but I do love my job too. So it may end up with me not necessarily having as much time as I want to work on complicated projects, but not every project has to be complicated. Next weekend, well, life. Let me see if I can come up with a little bit more of a flow for saying that. So last weekend, my husband and I went to go see a Princess Bride show. So they showed the movie, and then Carrie Elwes came out and did a little bit of a talk, told some stories about filming. Oh, most of them I had already heard because I had read his book previously, but he's a great storyteller. If you like Princess Bride or any of his other work and you get an opportunity to go and see him speak, he's definitely very entertaining. Next weekend, we are going to see Tina, the Tina Turner musical. And then we are also working on hopefully seeing my brother again soon, but that's probably not until April. I'm losing track of time. My in-laws should theoretically be visiting sometime in March, but we don't know exactly when. So hopefully when I get some of this paperwork and everything done at work and I feel a little bit more caught up, hopefully that is something where we can try to catch up on all these various projects. I do think organizing it is in the way that I have been, where it's like, look, I did this, check off. It does help with that little bit of a sense of accomplishment, but I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't make me feel far behind. Because if one month I don't get my 2 colors done, or 3 colors, or however many colors done, it is technically going to be fine. It's not the end of the world. I will have other opportunities to catch up, but I really don't want to fall behind either. So I'm trying to balance that, like, planning and calm and organized and accidental pressure, and making sure I'm not doing too much of that. I am definitely starting to babble. I'm not even making sense to myself. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it here and clean and organize all these projects and get to editing and hopefully make some progress on things so that I can continue to make beautiful things and continue to have the joy of that while not stressing out about all these projects that are not currently finished, because that is not what I'm doing here. What I should be doing here is enjoying the making process. Until we meet again, I hope you enjoy the making process for whatever you are making.